Okay, what's going on, everybody? My name is Mang. Welcome back to Roll Mangging for Call of Cthulhu. Now, this is not part of the official campaign, hence, the different title. We are not playing this Sunday, as I had mentioned, because it is Easter, and so, I didn't want that huge of a gap without us doing anything, Why? So, I figured, okay, let's just do a random one-shot. It didn't have to be of Call of Cthulhu, it could have been of anything. Just something for me to play, just so we have something. And so Ren volunteered to run a Call of Cthulhu one-shot. And we got myself, Olaf, Reefley, and Ed. And so it's four of us, which is good for a one-shot. It's a fine number. And we were doing just a custom-written thing that Ren made up. All right? And the setup was, he had posted like a news article and a telegram. And the news article was about a group of doctors that had gone on like some crazed rampage and were now apprehended and taken to this asylum outside of London. And the telegram was sent to each one of us from the head... it's not a warden, is it? I don't know, the head doctor at the asylum, inviting all of us to come provide our professional assistance in this situation. And so we all had to make doctors, like therapists of some kind, mental doctors of some type. And so I made a electroshock therapist named Arthur Friedkin. And if you're really amazing at references, you might have gotten that one. But that was the name of the doctor from Grave Encounters. I don't think he was an electroshock therapist, but he was a mad doctor, so I thought it was a cool name, and I like Grave Encounters, so. Olaf played a lobotomist named Dr. Gerald Wilson, of course, which I think was the same name as his first Call of Cthulhu campaign character that died off. The other two, Ed and Reefley, both played like pharmaceutical therapists, I guess. There's probably a better term for this. But they believed in the power of therapeutical drugs. Reefley more dealing in cocaine and heroin, which was all the rage back then. And Ed, I don't know what Ed believed. He just said other chemicals, and he never revealed what they were, so God knows. And so that was the four of us. And so we started off just getting off of the train at the village, the closest village to the asylum. This asylum was in the middle of God nowhere. And so we all get off the train at the same time, and we introduce each other, I guess. It was very staggered. Pretty much it's almost always like that. Like, I've never had really a good moment where it's like, okay, you can introduce yourselves to each other. I've never had it like, oh yeah, okay, here you go, oh, hey, it's always something kind of awkward. I don't know if it's just the groups that I've played with, or if that's how most groups are, but it always just feels like, yeah, okay, what's gonna happen now, like, move along. Nothing against Ren, because I've done the same shit. You figure it's kind of realistic, you're all meeting each other, introduce yourselves. But it's like, it's the first big usual moment of any session where it's like, okay, we're not players anymore, we're characters. It's kind of a jump that, for a lot of groups, I don't think really works as well as it should. But that's an incredibly minor point, it doesn't matter. So I said that I knew Dr. Gerald Wilson, and I was like, oh, I thought they only invited the the leading therapists in around the world or something like that. The other two I didn't know and I didn't care because they believed in drugs, and the only thing that cures a broken mind is electroshock therapy. So I don't know why they were invited. It seems kind of strange. And so we talked to the attendant there, and no cars went out that way to the asylum, so we had to get a horse-drawn carriage. We were exceptionally assholes to this carriage driver. I guess we were all playing it like just doctors of any type are just kind of secretly maniacal freaks of superiority complexes or something. I don't know, man. But anytime the cabbie said anything, we were just like, yes, yes, damn stupid cat. It was funny. And so we eventually arrive at the asylum, and there's a guy attending the lawn or something at the front. And we get out and he's like, no, stay away! What are you doing here? Very ominous horror movie cliche. You shouldn't be here. What are you doing? And so the cabbie driver's like, ah! And he starts pushing our luggage out of the back of the carriage. And so Dr. Gerald Wilson, the pacifist that he is, swings his cane at him. And he's a pacifist. Swings his cane and he crits. I think he rolls a 2. And so he just smashes into his knee. He's like, I don't need this shit. He drives off and we luckily grab all our shit. Luckily, I don't know why I say it. It didn't matter. Anyways. And so he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, yes, sir. If you could handle our luggage, that would be most appreciative. He didn't handle our luggage. So then the front doors open and out comes Dr. Seymour Bagstock, the head physician here. He runs the whole place. By himself, pretty much. So Dr. Bagstock, and he says, oh, I'm glad you could all make it, blah, 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 and he's like, oh, well, you don't ignore, shit. I think his name was Ebenezer Scribbler or something like that. And we recognized him as one of the doctors that was in the newspaper report. So this guy was the crazed rampage, one of them. And he was like, oh, ignore him, this is part of his therapy, it calms him down. And I'm like, yeah, sure it does. What are you doing here? Okay. And so we all go in, and we sit down in his little living room, I guess. His meeting room, whatever. And we get, coffee, we get scotch, whatever, we get our drinks. And so basically, he's invited us here to get our opinions on each of these doctors and the best way to help them. Because we are the leading physicians in each of our fields. So, of course, you know what I'm going to say. Because this is already a closed deal. And he's like, oh, Dr. Friedkin, I ordered a brand new electroshock equipment just for your arrival. And I'm like, all right, this is a done deal. I don't get it. Rig him up, let's go, and I'm out of here in 30 minutes. It's done. But he's like, well, I have arranged rooms for each of you for staying the night, or staying nights, whatever. And so I called dibs on the best room. Oh! So, yeah, I did. I said dibs. Which brings me to a big point here. This is... Yeah, just snapshot that situation in your mind, because we're going to switch to something different here. My character. Okay, we were building our characters. And this ties into Call of Cthulhu in general. Call of Cthulhu, I didn't really pick up on this right away, because it wasn't in the 7th edition Quick Start rules. And so then when I switched over to 6th edition, I had kind of glazed over it, and I didn't mention it to anybody because I don't know why I didn't. I didn't want to make it more complicated. I don't know. But education. Okay, the two probably most important stats a character in Call of Cthulhu has is power and education. Because power determines your sanity, your magic points, and your luck. It's a big thing. Education, more than anything, it determines your knowledge roll, but that's not as important. It determines the majority of your skill points, which is big. That's most of what your character is. And so those you want to do very well on your rolls. Alright, now, the only, rule for increasing any of those stats, there's only one rule, and it's for increasing education. And how it works is the minimum age for your character is your education plus 6 years. So if I wanted to make Artemis, I would have to roll, and in fact, if I ever do roll this, the education roll is 3d6 plus 3. So I would have to roll 3 ones, which would give me 6. My minimum age would be 12. So if I ever do that, I'm making Artemis. I don't give a shit. He'll be a really shitty character, because even though he's a genius, I guess, he has, the least amount of skill points possible. Okay, so anyways, minimum age, education plus 6. For every 10 years over that number, so, if I made Artemis 22 or 32 or whatever, you get 1 point extra of education. Alright? And then for every 10 years over 40, you subtract 1 strength, con, dex, or appearance. And so, as I'm reading this, and as I've come to realize now, there's no reason to make a young character. At all. At all. Because maybe for something, there's no rules whatsoever for being if the character is over 60 years old, do this instead. There's none of that. It treats all characters equal as far as age goes. So comparing Artemis to, a 90-year-old, all that matters is their stats. There's nothing else. Now, of course, when I'm running a campaign and something comes up that's really would affect somebody of a different age, maybe. But you already are going to take a penalty on your stats because of it, so the game wants you to play old characters, which is right. That's a Lovecraft hero, is an older professor. And so Arthur Friedkin was 74, which got me, I think, 4... No, maybe he got me 5. I think it might have gotten me 5 extra points of education, which is 100 extra skill points, and I subtracted my dex from 18 to 15. Who cares? That's such a negligible thing, because your stats, your characteristics, don't affect your skills. So, so you can have a 5 dex, which pretty much all it does is affects your initiative and dex rolls. But you can still have skills of whatever, It's not like you can't put more than this many points in this skill unless your dex is this. So, skills are all what it's about for the most part, So, hell yeah, make old people. So anybody from, the campaign watching this, make old people in general. It's better. I'm trying to help you out. Extra 100 skill points. That's the way to go. Now, I don't know if there's a ceiling. I mean, obviously there's a ceiling on age, but I don't know if there's a ceiling on education. Because the highest education you can roll is 21. Which I guess would be 27. So if you made a 77-year-old, you could have an education of 27 or something like that. Maybe that was quick math, but that seems really high. I may have to check if there is an upper limit to education, because that is the only one you can really increase. But, Cthulhu has a strength of 400, so whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that was my side thing about play old people in Call of Cthulhu. It's just better. There's no benefit to playing a young soldier type. Why? You can be an 87-year-old and rock the machine gun all day, all night. Like, it doesn't, whatever. Again, if you want to roleplay, then it doesn't matter. But if you want that extra edge, play an old person. I guess I always think in the D&D mentality. It's all min-maxing. But no, it is role-playing first in this game, so play what you want, but old people are more appropriate. Because it's Lovecraft. Alright, anyways, that was for me calling dibs, because I didn't think a 74-year-old would do it. Alright. So we each go to our rooms, we got these little rooms, and it's pretty sparse. It's basically just a bed, a nightstand, a closet, whatever. And each room has a bunch of paintings in them. Paintings are all over the place, everywhere. And we failed like 7 spot hidden checks around these paintings. And finally, I think Ed made one. Yeah, he made a spot hidden check. And he noticed that the paintings were all done by one of the crazy doctors. And that was the crazy doctor that I knew personally going in. And so Ren's like, you didn't know this guy to be he wasn't much of a painter beforehand, like when you knew him. And I was like, aha, a clue. And so I was like, okay. And so we all put our stuff away. Olaf checked under his bed and found an empty shoebox. I don't know if that has any, like, any significance. I don't know if Ren maybe could tell us if it had any significance other than just this character is looking under a bed. I'm just gonna give him a red herring, I suppose. That's probably what it was, but yeah. So we all head back into the meeting room, and so he's like, well, you know, you can go and talk to each one of the patients individually and give me your opinion. And so I'm like, I asked him about the guy that I knew that is now painting. And he's like, yes, this hidden talent manifested when he arrived here, and he's been painting. You can't stop the man from painting. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to see him first. And so that was pretty much all we talked to Bagstock about. You know, like, we just wanted to get into it. That's what we're here for. And so he told us there's like we're in the south wing, so there's, you know, the meeting room, our bedroom, stuff like that in the south wing. The north wing is his laboratory, so he's got his electroshock shit up there. He's got all sorts of drugs and chemicals. All the fun stuff is up there. And then the east wing and west wing are where all the patients are. And this place, when Ren was describing it from the outside, it was pretty... Just think of like the most cliche, typical horror asylum you can think of, where it's just sparse, gray brick, no windows with just little slits like high up and stuff, and spirals, and yeah, it was very horror movie asylum. And so we're like, all right, let's go see this guy, Solomon, Dr. Solomon. We're gonna go check him out. So we go down, we go to the east wing. And on the door, you know, Dr. Solomon Drood, and we go in. And so there he is, he's painting away, there's paintings everywhere, all over the room, and they're all of, like, constellations and star maps and the sun and planetary bodies and all sorts of stuff like that. And so I'm just like, Solomon, my God, what happened to you, man? And he just turns around, he looks at me, and he's like, you know, the guy's insane, all right? That's very clear. So he didn't really do much. And I like go and I put my hand on him. He's just like, no, 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 no. And I'm like, those no's will soon turn to yeses, my friend. I will fix your broken mind the only way I know how. Electroshock therapy. You must come with me immediately. And so I tried to escort him out, but he didn't want. He's like, no, I paint, no. And I'm like, you can paint later. I'm gonna fix your ass. And I'm like the worst role player. Whenever, I'm not the worst role player. I'm the worst role player for one shots, because I always devolve into just you working as much like slang and not inappropriate, anachronistic language as I can into the conversation for my character. So the 74-year-old Russian therapist in 1924 is saying, I'm calling dibs on this room and I'm gonna fix your broke ass. I don't know. I'm terrible, but it's a one shot. It's for fun. So yeah, that's a side point. I'm sure that pisses some people off. We're role playing, damn it. I'm sorry. Okay, so right. So he doesn't want to go, and I'm like, call the orderlies. And we need to electroshock therapy. We need to therapeutize him immediately. And so this is where Dr. Oh my god, did I forget his name? I forgot his name. I said it earlier. Dr. Wilson. I can't remember his first name. I've already blanked it out. Fuck. It's terrible. Alright, Dr. Wilson. I'll remember it at some point along here. Yeah, so Dr. Wilson, he grew on my... rubbed me the wrong way. He's like, Dr. Friedkin, this isn't... We should be doing this a different way. It's not right. I'm like, damn you! Help me! And, he didn't help me. And so I think he and Lloyd... Yeah, Lloyd. I think he and Lloyd left. And so I'm like, fine, I'll get the orderlies myself. And so I run out in the hall. I yell for orderlies. Nobody shows up. And so at the, like, nearby there's like a bell. Or no, it was next to the door to the northern wing by his laboratory. And so we rang the bell, and finally he opened the door and came out, bag stock. And I'm like, where are your orderlies? He's like, there are no orderlies here, it's just me. And that should have been a pretty big clue. We probably should have killed him right there. But I'm like, damn it! How am I supposed to restrain this patient? It's like, why are you restraining him? He needs electroshock therapy! It's like, whoa! You're supposed to, analyze each patient and come to a conclusion that all you agree on. And I'm like, whoa. You called in the leading electroshock therapist, and you ordered brand new electroshock equipment. I assumed you wanted some electroshock therapy going on. And he's like, I bought that as a potential option if indeed a patient needed electroshock therapy. And I was like, are you an electroshock therapist? Are you like a leading electroshock therapist? No? Perhaps we should find one. Oh, wait! I had to be as much of a dick as I could. Again, one-shots bring out the worst in me. And so, yeah, Artemis never would have acted like that. Of course not. And so, yeah, he basically eventually just shut his door and went away. And I'm like, oh, God. Bag stock. And so, I'm like, fine, I'll just restrain him myself. And so, Chris. Yeah, I don't know if I didn't name their character. No. Reefly was playing Lloyd. Ed was playing Chris. And they were both the drug guys. So Chris was like, well, I'll help you restrain him. And so we both tried to grapple him and get him, you know, going, but we both failed because you have a 25% chance to grapple if you don't put any points into it, and we're doctors, so. I did have a sword cane. I didn't mention that. I brought along a sword cane because as soon as I heard about Call of Cthulhu, all I wanted was a sword cane at some point. And so I got it. I was amazed none of the players in the campaign had a sword cane. I figured that would be a no-brainer. Ziggy, why do you not have a sword cane? But yeah, I brought a sword cane and I put like 70 points into it. So I didn't whip it out yet, don't worry. And so yeah, so he's just like, no, I paint. Damn it, Solomon. And so for some reason we get distracted by the paintings in the room, and so we start looking around. And upon close inspection of the paintings, like in the inky blackness among the stars, we notice like the faintest silhouettes of humanoid figures. And so he sees us looking at him and he's just like, they. And I'm like, all right, dude, calm down. And so I think eventually we just kind of gave up because the other guys had gone on to the next patient. And so, yeah, I think we were just like, you know, screw it. We're done with him. And so we go into the next room. And the next room is basically like, picture like a spider nest. Spider's nest, right? Well, you know, just picture any spider area from a game or movie where it's just covered in webs and all over the place. But instead of webs, it's ribbon. All right? That's the difference. And so that's what we walk into. And so we can't really see anything because it's just ribbon everywhere. And so the guy in here was named Dr. Barnacle. Or no, I think it was like Lord Meridius Barnacle or Decimus Barnacle. Decimus Meridius. I don't know. I think it was Decimus. Decimus Barnacle. I just called him Barnacle. And so I think we were like debating on what to do because we couldn't move into the room without getting all up in the ribbons. And so I was like, enough of this. And I whip out my sword cane and I swing at the ribbons and I fail with my 70 sword cane. I fail to cut ribbon. Like I like clash against it, but it's damn my feeble arms. So yeah, I couldn't do it. And so then while I'm doing that, a little man, I don't actually know how little he was. I don't think he was a little person. But I think he was like, nah, I don't know what he was. Nah. He like runs forward, and he grabs my sword cane, and he runs back into the ribbon. What the fuck? And so I'm like, alright, I charge right in after him. I'm gonna punch him in the back of the head. And that's what I tried to do. But he dodged out of the way. So I was just... And so now I'm in the midst of these ribbons. And what followed is kind of confusing. I think, like, Chris never entered into the room. Gerald just got really pissed at me. He wanted me to just die. I think Lloyd came in at some point. And Lloyd snuck in a gun. Because apparently you can't play Call of Cthulhu anymore unless somebody has a gun. So, yeah, he had a gun that he brought in. And so what followed, again, I'm not going to remember. We made a lot of rolls during this like 4-hour session. There was a lot of rolls being made. And most of them were power times 5, which was interesting. Again, I don't have a okay, I don't think Ren had the book. I don't think Ren has the 6th edition book. So I'm not going to fault him for anything. But based on what, you know, I have run with a couple one-shots and mainly the campaign, power power times rolls are not made that often in 6th edition. Generally, things are put on the resistance table. I don't know if that's more or less interesting, or I guess it's kind of the same. I guess it doesn't really matter, but like the campaign will never have that many power times whatever strength, you know. Like, it's fine, I guess. Say, you know, you're opening a door. One way to do it is roll a strength times something. But the difference is, like, the best you can do is, like, strength times 1. I mean, that's, like, the hardest freaking door in the world. You can say roll a strength times 1. And a lot of people will have, you know, like a 10% chance to do it. Whereas doors, really tough doors in, you know, say the campaign, they'll be like strength 50. And so you have to match your strength 50 on the resistance table. And no human will ever do that. I don't think it's possible. So you have to have multiple people to do so. I don't know if doors are like that, but heavy things are like that. And so the resistance table allows for a lot more flexibility than just the times thing. This is, again, a completely separate point because Ren ran the whole thing fine. I'm not harping on him or anything. But it was just something I've noticed that the resistance table is a big part of what 6th edition is. Whereas I don't think it's in 7th edition, so... yes, what was I talking about? Okay, anyways, so starting here in the ribbon room, and pretty much for like the rest of the session, we would occasionally, somewhat randomly, have to roll power rolls. Power times 3, power times 4, power times 5, and yeah. And they would affect our mental... So I would say for Ren's one-shot, power was by far the most important stat. So yeah. Trying to remember this ribbon room is... God, that's a nightmare. I'll get the long and the short of it. Basically, at one point, I got, like, sucked into something. I got, like, sucked into a different dimension or something. And I just woke up... Like, I went unconscious, and I woke up on a huge actual spider web. And I think, like, Dr. Barnacle or Lord Barnacle was in front of me, and he had, like, a bloated stomach for some reason. And then behind him in the dark, there was, like, this big actual spider crawling towards me, and I lost sanity, and it was terrifying. And then it was about to, like, come down on me, and the other two guys pulled me out of there. Because the two of them came in all the way, and they... Actually, like, I was just, like, sitting there, like, with my eyes rolled up in my head, and I was just motionless, and so they grabbed me and pulled me all the way out of the room, and so that saved me. I would have died right there, and that was, like, an hour into it or something. That would have been interesting, I suppose. And so, at one point, while Lloyd was going in there to try and save me, he got, like, a length of ribbon, like, I think it was from, Barnacle. He, like, tied ribbon around his wrist. And he was just like, oh, okay, and he, like, at one point he eventually pulled it off after it started to itch. And so we got all the way out of there, and, I think Chris at one point had run to ring the bell again. Because our whole thing was like, he has a weapon now, he's dangerous. Because he stole my sword cane. I was really pissed about that, by the way. That was like my whole reason for this character, was my sword cane. And Ren was like, fuck that, I'm taking that sword cane. And so, the Dr. Bagstock came out. He was like, what's going on here? Patient has a weapon. And at this point, I'm just like, I'm crazy. Like, I lost like 1 sanity point, so I completely overplayed it. Kind of like Ziggy did for Skinner. I was like, oh my god, what is going on here? The spiders, no! What have you got going on here, Bagstock? And so, we had kind of misinterpreted it. Both Olaf and I. We had thought we were still in the ribbon room. and Bagstock had come into the ribbon room with us. That's what we thought, but we were actually outside of the room. We were in the hallway. So Olaf and I had both misinterpreted that. So our plan was, or my plan was, we run for the door, and we just slam the door shut and lock Bagstock in there with that crazy thing. The problem being, we were outside the room, and so Ren thought we were running towards the front door. It actually worked out. Kind of. But, so we're just like, I'm running for the door. And he's like, you both arrive there at the same time. And so again, I'm thinking it's just, this little, a regular wooden door, and I want to get out there and slam it shut as quickly as possible. So I'm like, I swing a punch at Dr. Gerald Wilson. There we go, I told you. And I hit him. Boom! 3 damage right across the face against that pacifist. And so I get to the door first. And so, yeah, I thought, I would just slam it shut on both of them and I would win. But we were at the front door and the doors were locked, so great. After Bagstock telling us that they're open, you can leave anytime. And so the others catch up, Bagstock catches up, and so he acted nonchalant the whole time. He's just like, you are acting almost as crazy as our patients. This seems all very strange. Perhaps you should retire to your room. At this point, I'm like, I'm gonna kill you, Bagstock. What the hell is completely flipping out. Jump him! And so I think, I tried to kill him. But again, I didn't put points in any combat thing except sword cane, which is why Ren took it away as soon as possible. He's like, no, Mang's gonna sword cane this dude as soon as possible. So let's just yoink that right out of there. And so, if only I had put 99 points into kick. Flying sidekicks all over the place, man. And so, I think Gerald and I both, tried to beat the shit out of Bagstock. We all missed. And so he just puts his hand behind his back and he just, walks to his laboratory. And so, Gerald and I are just kind of, solid snaking him. We're right behind him. He knows we're there. And so, he gets to his laboratory door, which is closed. And so I'm like, wait for him to open it. And so he turns around and he's like, wait for what? I'm like, get him! And so I think, Gerald critically failed or something like that. Or he crit on his dodge. I don't remember what it was. I think he crit on his dodge. And so he quickly just went right into his laboratory and locked the door. Bagstock! And so at this point, it's just every man for himself. This is life or death. As I realize, this is not what Ren planned for at all. Damn right. It's a one-shot, baby. Alright, so of course, I had to follow the code of the one-shots, which, Step 1 is make a really weird, loopy character that's volatile. Step 2 is completely bone over anything that the DM had planned for the one-shot. And so now we're at Step 3, which is start a fire. So, my plan was to start a fire under the gap in this door and smoke him out. And so I'm like, okay, fire, what are we going to light? Paintings, they're everywhere! And so I went into my room, and I ripped down the paintings and rolled them up and stuffed them under there. And they were like, well, do you know how to make fire from scratch? And I'm like, why would I need to make fire from scratch? I have this lighter because I'm a chronic smoker. Which, hey, who's going to fault Dr. Arthur Friedkin for being a chronic smoker? It's the 20s, man. So, okay. So, light those babies up. So, we were smoking them out. It was great. And again, during this whole thing, we're making power rolls and stuff like that. And I think Gerald failed at one. So, he was, leaning up against like a coffin or it was some mausoleum type thing. It was weird. And he heard a whisper, is like, do you want to join us in Arcadia? He's like, oh, how? Like, oh, sure. And so yeah, we were getting weirded out. And at this point, around this point, while we're burning the paintings under the door, Lloyd, with the drug problem, the heroin issue, his, like, wrist was getting real rough. Like, it was, like, blistering and, like, bubbling and shit. And so he showed it to Gerald with his 99 medicine. And Gerald's like, I'm gonna have to let this, I'm gonna have to bleed it out, or whatever. Drain it. And so they got, like, a syringe, and he's, like, doing it. He's draining the shit. But as he's doing it, Lloyd sees, like, a spurt of blood come out. And he notices that, like, in the spurt of blood are, like, thousands of tiny spiders. I don't know how he saw it, but, yeah. So thousands of tiny spiders just coming out of his blood. And so he does the only rational thing, of course, by sticking his hand into the painting fire. Which hurts. And in no way kills off any spiders whatsoever. And so, yes. So we were like, oh god. So Gerald had to, like, do some medicine shit on him to help him out. And I'm just like, oh my god, we're done for. This is over. And so, at some point, well, like, the paintings get, like, pushed out. Like, Bagstock, like, pushes the paintings out of the door on our side. And so I get more paintings. I, like, stuff them under there again. But he pulls them in this time. And I'm like, damn it, it's not going to work. He's onto us. And so at some point, Lloyd passes out. I think from a combination of, like, the infection as well as a lot of drugs. I think there were drugs involved. And so he passes out. And we're just like, he's dead. And so now we split up a little bit. Chris went upstairs, up to the spiral. And I was like, okay, Gerald, we should go to the West Wing. Or no. I was like, we should go get my sword cane back. That's all I wanted. He's like, we're not getting your sword cane back. I'm like, all right, let's go to the West Wing. He's like, I don't want to go to the West Wing. I'm like, you want to go get my sword cane back? All right, let's go to the West Wing. And so we went over there. And the first thing we see is, like, a guy cleaning his rifle. Singing So Happy Together. And I'm like, fuck that, man. And so I'm like, let's jump him. And so I think Gerald punches him. And he's like, oh, how dare you embarrass me in front of my barracks, or something like that. And so I think he's got his gun pointed at him. And so I think we were like, wait till he's put the gun back together, because he's, like, taking it apart and putting it back together. Just wait till he's got it together, because we want the gun. Guns are good. Oh, Lloyd's gun. That got sucked into a dimensional portal as well. We lost that gun. Because Ren didn't want us to have guns. I don't blame him, but... So, actually, yeah. Most of what happened in this session was just him taking away any possible weapons as soon as possible. So, yeah. So this guy... he, like, puts it together. I don't see any parts lying around. I'm like, all right, jump him. And so we both, like, nail him. Or, like, I think Gerald hits him for, like, 3. And so he, like, stands at attention and he fades away. He, like, disappears. Bullshit. And so then we suddenly find ourselves in, like, we find ourselves in London during World War II. I don't know. Bombs are falling outside. He, like, runs into the room again. We jump him again. He takes, like, another 4 damage or something. And then he fades away. And he did ask us if we wanted to recruit him into our army. So we just punched him again. Because we wanted his gun, damn it. And so he faded away, and we were back in the asylum. And so... And so that was that. I don't know if we found anything else in the western... Well, we didn't explore that much. We heard screams, and again, power rolls were all over the place and stuff like that, but I don't think we explored anything else in the western wing that I remember. Or at least it wasn't major. No, I'm going to say it's nothing. So we head back, and Chris, in the meantime, he goes up the spiral. He immediately gets attacked from behind, and he gets, like, pierced through the back of his leg by some spider creature. And so then the rest was handled via, like, private messages, so we didn't know what happened. Anytime that happens, by the way, anytime you're playing any type of role-playing game, ever, and this is complete metagaming, but anytime a player gets attacked on their own, and then it goes to private messages, they are now working for the enemy. You can guarantee it. Either they're working for the enemy, or it's a doppelganger. Okay, so we head back to Lloyd, who's still unconscious. Chris comes down, and he tells us that at the spiral, there's like an opening that we can use to get to the roof, and so we should tie together a bunch of bedding to like lower ourselves down. I'm like, all right, we'll do anything at this point. So we go to do the bedding stuff. We start gathering it together, and Gerald fails some power roll, and so he starts to get really hungry, unnaturally hungry. And there's a door nearby that we hadn't noticed, or we didn't care about, I guess. And there's a great sizzling sound and a smell coming from that door. Yeah, it's like... no, I won't mention this point yet. I'll mention it a little later. But okay, so he goes over there, he opens it up, it's a fully stocked kitchen, there's like fresh steaks sizzling there. He's like, Friedkin, you gotta come check this out. And I'm like, damn it, Gerald, we don't have time for this. He's like, but there's steaks, they look really good. Check it out. And I'm like, okay. And so I go over there, I get intoxicated by the smell, and I'm like, dude, there's 4 steaks sitting here. So how about 1 for me, 1 for Gerald, 1 for Chris, and 1 for me. Because fuck Lloyd, he's dead. And so Gerald's like, how about 2 for you, 2 for me? And I'm like, it doesn't change my bottom line, so sure. So we sit down, and we just mound in. Just great freaking steaks. Taste amazing. So good. Get some steak sauce going in there. Get some onions. Get all that. And so at some point along the way, we both look over at each other's meals. And our steaks look fine. But the other person's look like covered in maggots and all sorts of stuff like that. And shit, I'm thinking of a movie right now. Nobody is going to have seen this movie. Especially if I can't think of the name. Oh, man. I have to look it up. I'll keep talking while I look this up, but I need to remember what that is. It was a single title name. Okay, anyways. So it just looks terrible, covered in maggots and flies flying around it, and just disgusting. And so I'm just like, damn, Gerald. Dread, that's what it's called. It's not Dread with Carl Urban, it's D-R-E-A-D. And it's not a great movie, I can't recommend it. Although I heard good things about it. I didn't think it was that great. But there was a character that's like a vegetarian because her father was a butcher, and so he came home and raped her, and he always smelled like meat, and so she hates it. And so this guy locks her in a room with a big plate with a big cut of meat. And so she's not allowed to leave until she eats the whole thing raw. And so eventually she's in there for so long, she's about to die of starvation, and the whole thing is rotting and covered in flies and maggots, and she finally eats it so she can get out. And yes. This is what happens when you've seen too many horror movies, alright? You become like me. Don't do it. Anyways, yeah. Okay. What was I talking about? Yeah. I'm like, damn, man. You must really like that shit. And so he looked at me like, ugh, and I'm just not, we're both just pounding it away. And so okay, here's my point. For something like this, I think maybe perhaps a lot of Call of Cthulhu, I think it comes up, where you as a player, even arriving at the asylum, pretty much anything in this session, you as a player are like, this is completely fucked. I want nothing to do with this. This is terrible. I'm just going to die. But you as a character, you either don't have a choice, or you're just ignorant or clueless or something like that. And so that was kind of what this was, where we're sitting here eating this meat, and Ren's just like, you feel compelled to keep going, but the other one looks so terrible. And then at some point, I was like, I failed like a power roll, and he's like, you want to eat his steak, even though it looks terrible. And so I like grab it from him, or I trade him like a syringe of heroin or something, and I take a bite out of it, and I'm just mounting it down. And it's like, okay, my character has no choice in the match. I guess I could have said, I don't want to. And I could have had to try and roll and whatever. But I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I guess that's kind of the whole thing about Call of Cthulhu, is when you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you know you're playing Call of Cthulhu. You know everything is fucked, and it's about to go from bad to worse. And so it's very much a game of feigning ignorance, I think. And so basically it devolved very quickly into a old man fight. I stole like his steak, and I was just pounding into it. So he like double stabbed me with heroin injections, and I almost died. I made one roll and I didn't die immediately, but I was gonna die pretty soon. And so I like grabbed my steak knife and I tried to stab him in the throat, and we're like throwing these useless punches because none of us have combat abilities, and knives are going around, and I'm about to slash him, but my hand gets grabbed by something from behind, like some invisible force, and so he's just like continuing to try and inject cocaine into my legs, and I'm just flailing him, trying to kick him in the mouth, and this thing has still got me grabbed, so I try and like backhand it or something, and eventually I think Gerald's like, Friedkin is mine. And so the thing lets me go. And at this point, well, I think he like critically fails some injection attack. So he falls on his syringe. So he gets injected with pure cocaine. And so the heroin finally kicks in for me, so I pretty much collapse, and I'm like, alright, I want to try and collapse with my knife onto Gerald. I miss, and so we're just like, and eventually I pass out, so I think he's about to stab me in the throat, in like the heart, and he hears Bagstock's voice in his head. He's like, no, Gerald, you mustn't kill him. I will offer him a chance to join us in Arcadia. Because I think at some point Gerald had agreed to join them in Arcadia. Yes, I think he did. And so I get a vision, or I get like a dream, and I see Bagstock there. He's like, I will offer you one chance to join us in Arcadia. And I'm like, well, in Arcadia, can I kill Gerald Wilson? Dr. Gerald Wilson. And he's like, well, I suppose there may be opportunities to inflict physical harm on him. And I'm like, all right. But what about stakes? And he's like, perhaps, yes. And I'm like, sold. Everything I need out of life, torturing Gerald Wilson and eating steak. Let's go, baby, Arcadia. He's like, very good. And again, this is something where you're just like, I would rather die than go to Arcadia, 100% sure, but this sounds good to me. And, it's a game, whatever. And so yeah, I get whisked away to Arcadia, Gerald gets whisked away, and Chris gets whisked away. The only one that did not agree to go to Arcadia was Lloyd. That's what he was offered, I guess, twice when he was unconscious to go to Arcadia, and he denied both times. I'm like, damn it, Lloyd! You get to torture Gerald Wilson, and you get to eat steak. Why would you not go? And he's like, I thought I was dreaming. I don't know. And so his fate was he got taken up to the spiral and devoured by a giant spider creature while he was fully conscious and aware of all the pain that was being inflicted upon him. So, I guess that's better than what we got, because in Arcadia, we were like tortured for like 100 years or something like that, and continually devoured anyways. But for like 60 of those years or something, I got to torture Gerald Wilson, so I think it was a win-win for Dr. Arthur Friedkin, but I don't know if the steak thing happened. He may have lied about that. And so that was that. And so then after like the 100 years, we were like completely insane, and we were part of this asylum, and our job then was to bring in somehow other people and bring them into Arcadia. And so that's where the session ended. And I know that didn't sound very long, and it was only like 4 hours or so, and the old man fight took a while. But what was that? I had some stuff to say here. Oh, yeah, so apparently, yeah, we completely kind of ruined most of what Ren had planned there. He anticipated a lot more investigation and talking and stuff like that. And I was... Okay, let me see what I was about to say there. I was capable of doing that. I think that's true. Because I didn't just immediately attack Bagstock when I first met him. I was going along with the therapy thing, but then he denied me the ability to do electroshock therapy. And I feel like, as a character, I think that's where Arthur Friedkin would kind of just be like, this is fucked up, I'm going out with style. And then my sword cane got stolen. So everything that Arthur Friedkin cared about in life was taken away from him. And so all bets were off, man. Then his only two goals became torture Gerald Wilson and eat steak. And so he achieved that in the end. I think that was a successful one-shot. So yeah, one-shots are very interesting. Especially when I'm involved. Perhaps not when normal people are involved. But for me, I go a little crazy. Call of Cthulhu no exception. I don't go... like I said, I don't go that crazy. I didn't just stab Bagstock right away. It's just kind of a continual devolvement into chaos, which is, I think, how one-shot should be, personally. I just try to keep it fun. Because if I hadn't done that, I think if we had gone really slowly, we would not have finished in 4 hours. And it probably would have been like 2 sessions or something like that, which is not a one-shot then. So I try to get things done. So yeah, I think one-shots, you can either, I think, well, Call of Cthulhu especially, you're probably going to either die or go insane or both. Like, it's very likely for a one-shot. Because it doesn't matter. And me as a DM, if I'm running a one-shot, like The Haunting, as the night draws to a close, I'm going to do most of what I can to kill you off, because then that's more fun for me. I don't care if you succeed on the one-shot, I care if you succeed in the campaign. because I want it to keep going, and that's the whole point. That's the enjoyment factor. But for the enjoyment factor for a one-shot is just kind of random craziness, at least for me. Now, I'm sure there are some people that do one-shots, and they do it just like they would do a campaign. They do their investigations, and they're looking into clues and the mystery they really want to solve. They really want to win. See, that's the difference. They treat it like a win-loss thing. I treat it as just fun. It's not a board game, it's just whatever. Now, something like our campaign, yeah, that's kind of a win-loss thing. Now, you can have a lot of fun along the way, but in the end, you're going to win or lose, So I think there's a big difference, at least for Call of Cthulhu, between a one-shot and a campaign, and other games as well. And so I think The Haunting is like the prime example of a one-shot, or at least for Call of Cthulhu, because, you go in, you're given a very simple mystery to solve, and then if you want, there are clues that you can find out. If you find enjoyment in finding clues and getting more information, you can do that. Or if you just want to go in there and have a crazy time in the fun house, you can do that. And yeah, you can be a complete asshole and just as soon as you get there, burn the house down. But you can do that in any one shot, and it just completely bones it. Like if I had stabbed Bagstock right away. And so that's just, if you're the type of player that does that, stop playing. And then once you're in the house, there is a win-loss thing, and it's just like, if you lose, if you all die, you probably had a fun time. I think the couple times I've ran The Haunting, I think everybody enjoyed it. Not to say this was not a bad one shot. It was fun. I had a lot of fun. But I always wonder, this is nothing against Ren, but I always wonder if I had fun because of my actions or because of the material. Like, if I had played it much more serious, stoic, tried to do it how it was written, would I have had as much fun as if, I did what I did? That's always kind of an interesting question to me. And, I also try to think of other people's enjoyment. Like, the other guys, would they have enjoyed it more if we had run it like it was written and we did the investigating? Whereas, I definitely have come to realize, don't trust me, I have, over the last couple of years, that I tend to dominate the session when I'm playing. Or at least it certainly feels like it. Not to be the center of attention or anything. But, when I'm playing, I tend to be the most vocal. Because that's how I like to play. And so, other players are never obligated to follow me or do what I say. But inevitably that tends to kind of happen, Definitely people separate. Chris went his own way and he met his own fate and stuff like that. But the Artemis campaign is the main example that I'm talking about, where I dominated that campaign almost totally. That's why we call it the Artemis campaign. And the other players were just kind of along for the ride. And it was an amazing campaign. Like, we all agree it's still pretty much our best so far. But was it the best because of what Ziggy had kind of done with it? Or was it the best because I had really taken the reins and was leading the adventure for the most part? I don't know. Because I'm never really sure if people are entirely honest when they say that they had fun, I don't know if they don't want to hurt my feelings, or if they are telling the truth and they did have fun, or they don't want to say, it was cool, but you kind of did everything, we wanted to do. I don't know, man. It's completely separate. Well, it's not completely separate, but it's a separate point. But I had fun. That's all I can say. I assume the other guys had fun, unless they say otherwise. Now, again, it was a one-shot. So it's just kind of, it's not whatever, who cares? But it's just like, it's just 4 hours of just kind of goofy fun. Now, if I went into a campaign like our Call of Cthulhu thing, and I just went crazy and I was doing all sorts of bullshit, you're probably going to get kicked out. So I don't do that. That's why when I'm doing, Artemis, or I was doing Ovum or something like that, well, I guess I always do kind of stupid stuff, but it's not just completely over the top like I am for one-shots occasionally. My characters like my drunk seaman guy or my bard from Studs' one-shot, that comes to mind. But yeah, one-shots are great for an occasional thing, where you're just kind of let loose and just do whatever. One-shots are great for starting any game, I think. Like any new role-playing game, start with a one-shot. And just let the system breathe and just go crazy and get all those emotions out of there. Because whenever I start a new system and I make my first character, I do whatever, I tend to just kind of be wild. My first D&D character was ridiculous. Numenera was... Yeah, well, actually, I think my first Numenera character was Artemis. Yeah, actually, I think so. Huh. Anyways, I'm just blathering now about something completely separate. But, yes, it was fun. That was my first taste of Call of Cthulhu. Actually, playing the system, it's definitely a very functional system. Everything works kind of how it should. Again, he didn't use the resistance table, which is... we use the resistance table for the campaign, so that's kind of a difference. Combat is interesting, because it's kind of like, the sword cane against the ribbon was probably the funniest thing. I'm not even sure if I really needed to roll for that, because it's just like, what was I failing at? There was ribbon everywhere. I don't know how I fail at that. I think for some activities, some situations, if you have a minimum number of skill, you should just do it. Like flying a plane. If you don't have any points into it, and you want to fly a plane, yeah, you're going to have to roll. If you have 50 points into it, and it's just a normal situation, you're just flying a plane, I'm not going to make you roll. It's just like I don't make you roll for walking. But if you're extremely drunk or something, or you're walking across like a narrow beam, I'm gonna make you roll. See, there's situations. Language in Call of Cthulhu, like another language, Latin, Greek, whatever. If you have 50, you're considered fluent. And so, unless it's like some really rough old tome or something like that, you don't really have to roll for any type of Greek interaction. And again, I'm not harping on Ren or anything. It was still funny. I think it was kind of made most of the session. But that's just kind of a thing, where if you have a number of points into a skill and it's just a basic scenario, whatever. Now, if you're flying a plane through a storm, probably no matter what your skill is, I'm going to make you roll. Now, if I was doing the ribbon thing and they were all swirling around me and slashing at me, sure, I'd make me roll too. But since they're just hanging there, I don't know. Alright, so I think that's about it. Again, it was a fun one-shot. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad we did it. I'm sure we'll do more one-shots as we either I need a break from DMing or whatever the situation. And I think Ziggy wants to run a Call of Cthulhu one-shot sometime. So we might switch over to that. I'm also open to, whatever system, so... Even on the backs of gods? No. I don't see that happening, but okay. Yeah, so, again, we're not playing this Sunday as it is Egg Holiday, so that's why we did this. So, yeah. My name is Mang. This has been Roll Mangging, and I'll see you fine folks in 10 days.